Yeah, I think what I'm going to talk about really picks up on what William was talking about, and also something that Troy mentioned earlier, which is that um, if we have the technology sophisticated enough, we don't actually need these meetings and these decision-making processes, because the decisions will reveal themselves, and the right decision will become obvious. We don't actually need to make the decisions. I'm just going to give a bit of an overview. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Brilliant. Okay. So as I say, I would have liked to make some nice presentations and slides and stuff, but I didn't have time. So I'm just going to sketch things on the screen very roughly. I just really want to give you guys a bit of an overview of graph databases, because graph databases are what I've been working with recently, and I think they probably will provide the solutions we need. So a normal database, a traditional database, is basically like an Excel spreadsheet. You've got tables. So if you've got a users table, you might have name, you might have email address, and you might have date of birth, and then you have rows in the table. And it's very much like a spreadsheet of data.
I made that yesterday.
And it has a schema to it. So it's very much static. It's a fixed data. And if you want to add something like my favorite food to that, you have to add a whole new column into the database, and it's a very rigid structure. So the evolution from that was the creation of document databases, which is very much what William's been talking about. And document databases are really where each line from the database, each person is a document. So it's much more like a collection of documents. So that document will have name, email, date of birth, and then you'll have another document with name, email, date of birth, and another one. And if you want to add, for example, favorite food to that, you can add it on, and it's schemaless. So you can add maybe, you know, favorite drink here, and you can add things. So that's a schemaless database. I'm doing this very roughly, and that's very much what William's been talking about, which is that in William's example, you know, you have all the information regarding a meeting or a decision-making process held within a document, and then that document is archived into a database. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how a graph database works. So a graph database is made up of nodes. So if I draw a node here, and then another node, and then another node. Now these nodes are like nouns. They're things. They can be anything. So a node could be a person, it could be an event, it could be a problem, it could be a solution. And the database doesn't really care what they are. They're a bit like the documents in a document database. They're schemaless objects. And then there are relationships between the nodes. So if these were people, for example, you could have, and the relationships can go both ways. So the relationships in a graph are called edges, and you can think of them as verbs. So for example, if these are people, you could say, well, these people know each other, and this person likes this person. So some go one way and some go both ways. In a graph database, the database is not so much interested in what's actually held inside the nodes. The database is really interested in the edges. So it looks at how nodes are connected rather than looking at what's actually contained inside the nodes. So probably would help just to give a couple of quick examples. One example, which is actually how I use a graph database in the Coeo platform, is, for example, if you have a node which is a group, and let's say that's the World Summit, and you have a node which is a skill, and we can say that the World Summit needs that skill. It's looking for someone with a particular skill. And then there's a person here, Bill, say, and he's a node in the graph. And maybe there's an event here, event. And then there's another person here, Bob. So what we can see is that maybe Bill is a member of the World Summit. Bill is attending an event, and Bob is also attending the event. And Bob has that skill. So what the graph database will do is it doesn't really care too much about what's actually in these nodes. What it will see is it will see this path through the nodes, through the edges. And it can say, okay, Bill, when you attend this event, you need to talk to Bob and ask him if he can help with the World Summit, because he has the skill that the World Summit's looking for. So it's looking for paths through between different nodes, and it's looking for the shortest route between them to make connections between things. So this is how Facebook recommends friends. You see on Facebook they recommend a friend, and you think to yourself, how on earth does Facebook know that I actually know that person? And it's because it's looked at all the links between that person, the groups they like, the locations, the friends they've got, and it looks for the shortest routes between things and uses them to make connections between things. So that's the kind of the common use of a graph database. And another example which is really relevant, people don't actually think of it so much with graph databases, is actually your GPS or mapping software uses graph databases. And what that does is it will say, okay, we've got a village here, and we've got another village here. And then there's roads, and there are junctions. And there's another junction, and there's a road, and there's a road straight there. Maybe here there's another road at a junction. Maybe there's a road here. So it looks at all the roads and all the junctions. Now each edge, these are edges, and each edge can have information attached to it. So on a GPS system, on a mapping system, the two bits of information it has are the distance. So for example, you could say that's 4 miles, that's 8 miles, that's 6 miles, that's 10 miles, 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles. And it also has the time it takes. So it might be 1 minute, it might be 4 minutes, it might be, I don't know, 6 minutes, and so on. And what it will do is it will look at the values of each of the edges, and it will find the shortest route. So in this case, it might find that although that road is a direct road between the villages, it takes 10 minutes. So that road takes 10 minutes. But this route here takes 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. So that route's quicker, but it's not necessarily the shortest. You might find that one of the other roads is shorter. And then if you add to the edges information about traffic and things like that, it has even more information to use. So it can find the quickest route between two nodes based on all the possible routes between them. Now, what's great about that example is the map. We don't sit down and have a meeting for an hour to decide which is the quickest way to get from A to B. The information's in the system, and the system will tell us the quickest way. We don't have to have a vote on it or anything like that. The system will just tell us which is the way we need to go. And I think that's the key to is that the system can actually make the best decision for us if it has the information that it needs to make that decision. So what we can do is, with a graph database, if we take out the group here from that and we make it a node, and then we take the members out and their individual nodes each, so these are members, they're people, and then we take the problem, that's a problem node, and then we take solution nodes. And what we start to do then is we start to look, okay, the problem has solutions, the people belong to the group, but then you might find there's another group up here, and this person is also a member of that group, and that group has a problem, and maybe that problem has the same solution as that problem, and you start to you break free from this sort of controlled document into nodes which can relate to each other much more freely within. So you can actually start to see relationships between different groups and different projects and all sorts of different things. So it opens things up for cross collaboration much more. I was thinking, and this really came from the initial, when I was initially listening to William the other week, was we were talking very specifically about problems and solutions. So I had this thought: if you really oversimplify things, most problems are the result of a solution. You know, we solve one thing and we create a problem. So if we just look at problems and solutions in terms of a graph database, if we start off with a problem, that problem may have, say, several possible solutions. And then each of those solutions may well cause additional problems. So there'll be other problems that are caused by the solutions. And then each of those problems may or may not have solutions. Some of them will, some of them won't. Some of those solutions will cause problems, and so on. And it can go on and on like that. I'm running out of space here. Now, what we can start to do is, if we start to actually look at the impact of the problems as well, which is what William was talking about, rating them. So if we say, okay, this is a really bad problem, we're going to give it a 10. This one's actually okay, it's only a minor problem, it's a 1. This one's a bigger problem, you know, this one's not too bad. And we actually start ranking these problems. I would use the word impact. What impact does the problem have? And then what you can start to do here is the graph database can start to actually look through this. It can analyze all the paths, and it can say, okay, so here we end up with a problem. So that's not good. That solution has a rather big problem. And it can look and it can say, okay, actually, if we look at this path here, we're ending up with a solution that doesn't actually have any problems following it. So actually, that's quite a good result. So you're looking beyond the immediate, you're not just looking at these 3 solutions here, you're actually looking at the longer term solutions to the problems that they cause, and it goes on and on. And the other thing then is, if you start to, okay, let's have a look at our original problem here. That was probably caused by a solution to another problem. So if we start to say, okay, let's have a look at the other solutions to that problem, and they will cause problems, and that will cause a problem here, and that might have a solution, and that might have a solution, and that might have a problem, and so on. So with this example here, if you have a look here, we've got a solution, and that solution is actually ultimately a solution to the original problem. So when we're looking for a solution to this problem, actually that's our solution there, because we're solving the original problem that caused that problem in the first place. So if you imagine that scaled up to, you know, much bigger, this you can look at and you can see the paths to it, and you can just look at it and you can see straight away which solution is the solution we need. But obviously real life is far more complex than that. And that's where you need the graph database technology, where it can analyze millions and millions of these paths very quickly and actually find out what the best solution is for you. So all we need to do is, we don't need to actually make decisions ourselves. What we need to do is we need to give the system the information that it needs to be able to make the decisions. And if you give it enough information, so if we go back to the map, you know, you're trying to get from A to B. Well, if you give it the information about the distance between points, and you give it the information about the speed you can drive on those roads, and you give it information about the traffic on those roads, it will give you the best option. And you don't need to have a meeting or a vote to decide which way to go, because it will just tell you the best route. So that's the ultimate objective. Yeah. Okay. What I'd like to just quickly finish off with is I'd just like to quickly show you a real life graph database, which is the CoEO network, just to give you an idea of this actually working in practice. Yeah, okay, so this is actually the CoEO database. It's very difficult to visualize because there's so much data, but if I have a look, for example, I'm just going to click on projects, and what it will do, hold on, I need to move that. What it will do is it will just load various projects in here. So here you can see you've got a project, you've got various people, the green circles are people that are following that project. The yellow circle there is a post. So you can see that Luke wrote that post, and that post belongs to that project. And you can see that that project belongs to the pink circle, which is a project type, which is community. And then you can see other projects that belong to that. And if I just start expanding various nodes, you start to see how everything is interconnected. And you start to see posts that are connected to various, I mean, it will just keep expanding as I open nodes, and eventually it will crash my computer. But this is just a fraction of the CoEO graph, you know, a tiny fraction of it. And there are various, you know, I just happened to click on New Earth Nation there, which is a project, and you can see the green people are the people are following that project. And you can see if I expand economics, you can see all the people that are following economics. The yellow dots are actually posts that have been posted about economics. And you can, I mean, it goes on and on. You're only seeing a tiny fraction of it, but it just gives you an idea how all the data is interconnected. And it's all about relationships between nodes. It's not so much concerned with the data that's in the nodes, but rather the connections between them. And it's the database is able to find connections between two nodes very quickly and find the best route between them. So yeah, that's really just a bit of an overview of the technology that I think can actually make what William's been talking about actually a reality.